Alright. Good afternoon, baseball fans. Big Al here. On this Monday, May 18th, 2026, and welcome to our weekly check of the Major League Baseball standings. And these are the standings through May 17th. We'll also go division by division on how each team did the past week and their opponents for the coming week. And we'll look at the playoff standings towards the end of this rundown. So make sure you stay tuned. Motto Lorianne is in the house. What's poppin'? Here in the background working. That's cool. Alright, let's jump into the Major League Baseball standings through May 17th, starting off in the American League East. The Tampa Bay Rays have the American League's best record at 30-15. They are 16-5 at home and 14-10 on the road, with 207 runs scored and 182 runs allowed for a run differential of plus 25. Tampa Bay won their last game, and over their last 10 games, they are 7-3. And they had a pretty good week last week, going 2-1 against the Blue Jays in Toronto, and 2-1 back at home against the Miami Marlins for a record of 4-2. With 36 runs scored and 31 runs allowed. This week they're playing within the division as they'll host the Baltimore Orioles for 3 games, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then it's off to the Bronx for 3 with the New York Yankees from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The aforementioned New York Yankees are in second place. They have a record of 28-19. They are 3 games behind Tampa Bay in the East. 14-6 at home, 14-13 on the road. 237 runs scored, 169 runs allowed. They have a run differential of plus 68, and that's the best in the American League. They've lost 2 straight games, and they're kind of cold. Only 3-7 in their last 10. And it was kind of a down week for the Bronx Bombers, as they went 1-2 at Baltimore, and 1-2 in the Subway Series against the New York Mets over at Citi Field. So for the week, the Yankees finished 2-4 with 22 runs scored and 27 runs allowed. They are also playing within the American League East this week. 4 big games, first up with the Toronto Blue Jays at Yankee Stadium Monday through Wednesday. And then they'll host the Tampa Bay Rays over the weekend for 3 games, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The third place team in the East is the Toronto Blue Jays at 21-25, right now 9.5 games behind the Rays. 13-11 at home, 8-14 on the road, 188 runs scored and 199 runs allowed. That's a run differential of minus 11. They've won 2 straight, and they are 5-5 over their last 10. And this past week, they split their 2 series. And it says that Toronto played Toronto, but we all know that's not true. Trying to see who they played. Okay. I'm looking for it. Give me just... In fact, hold on a second. Sorry about this. I wrote the wrong team down when I went to put in the Blue Jays record for last week. So we are going to do this. Jump into the Sports Alerts app. Okay. Go to standings. Click on the Blue Jays schedule. Alright. They went 1-2 against the Tampa Bay Rays. I don't know why I wrote Toronto down, but they went 1-2 against the Tampa Bay Rays. And then they went 2-1 in Detroit against the Tigers for a 3-3 record for the week. 24 runs scored, 23 runs allowed. Alright, they play every day this week, including 4 games in New York against the Yankees Monday through Thursday, and then 3 back at home at the Rogers Center against the Pittsburgh Pirates Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Thanks for that love there, Model Lorianne. And what's going on? Alright. In 4th place in the AL East are the Baltimore Orioles with a record of 21-26. They are 10 games behind Tampa. 12-12 at home, 9-14 on the road. 205 runs scored and 249 runs allowed gives them a run differential of -44. They won their last game, and they are 4-6 over their last 10. And it was a so-so week for the Baltimore Orioles last week. They did win the series against the New York Yankees 2-1, but then went down to Washington and lost went 1-2 against the Nationals. So they finished the week at 3-3. 24 runs scored and 27 runs allowed. Alright, the Orioles have 3 at Tropicana Field against the Tampa Bay Rays Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then they're back home hosting the Detroit Tigers for 3 games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And still last in the AL East, the Boston Red Sox with a record of 19-27. This puts them 11.5 games behind Tampa Bay for first in the East. 8-14 at home, 11-13 on the road, 167 runs scored, 187 runs allowed. That's a run differential of -20. They lost their last game, and they are 4-6 over their last 10 games. And this past week, they lost both series, losing 2 out of 3 at home against the Philadelphia Phillies, and then losing 2 out of 3 in their rivalry weekend set in Atlanta against the Braves. So Boston finished the week 2-4 with 11 runs scored and 19 runs allowed. Their road trip continues with 3 in Kansas City, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then they're back home hosting the Minnesota Twins for 3 games, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So the Red Sox will be playing against American League Central Division rivals. Speaking of which, that's our next division, and leading the way are the Cleveland Guardians with a record of 26-22. 15-10 at home, 11-12 on the road. 210 runs scored and 197 runs allowed gives them a run differential of +13. They've won 2 straight, and they are 7-3 over their last 10 games. And this was a really good week for the Guardians, going 3-0 and sweeping the Los Angeles Angels to start last week. And then they finish up going 2-1 against the Cincinnati Reds in the Ohio Cup Series. So that's a 5-1 record for the Guardians with 37 runs scored and 20 runs allowed. Alright, Cleveland will be traveling this week. They have 4 games in Detroit against the Tigers Monday through Thursday, and then 3 at Citizens Bank Park against the Philadelphia Phillies Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. In second place are the Chicago White Sox at 24-22, 1 game behind the Guardians, although they have the same amount of losses. 14-10 at home, 10-12 on the road. 211 runs scored and 218 runs allowed gives them a run differential of -7. Like the Guardians, the White Sox have won 2 straight, and they are 7-3 in their last 10 games. And like the Guardians, Chicago started the week off with a sweep as they won all 3 games from the Kansas City Royals and then took 2 out of 3 from their crosstown rivals, the Chicago Cubs, as they finished 5-1 for the week with 40 runs scored and 33 runs allowed. Alright, next up for the Southsiders, they have a 6-game West Coast trip beginning in Seattle with 3 with the Mariners Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then concluding in San Francisco with 3 against the Giants Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Moving into 3rd place are the Minnesota Twins with a record of 21-26. This puts them 4.5 games behind Cleveland. 13-13 at home, 8-13 on the road, 219 runs scored, 225 runs allowed. That's a run differential of -6. They won their last game and they are 5-5 over their last 10. This past week they went 2-1 against the Miami Marlins and 1-2 against the Milwaukee Brewers. All 6 of those games were played at Target Field. So that's a 3-3 week for the Twins. 25 runs scored and 19 runs allowed. Alright. They'll wrap up their homestand with 3 with the Houston Astros Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Then they're off to Boston for 3 with the Red Sox Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Tied for 4th place, you have the Detroit Tigers and the Kansas City Royals. Both 20-27 and both 5.5 games behind the Guardians. Stardust is in the house. What's up, Star? Alright, the Tigers are 13-8 at home, 7-19 on the road. 188 runs scored, 201 runs allowed. That's a run differential of -13. They've lost 2 straight games, and they are like ice right now. They're 2-8 in their last 10. The Royals, meanwhile, are 13-10 at home and 7-17 on the road. 189 runs scored to 210 runs allowed. Gives them a run differential of -21. They won their last game and they are 3-7 over their last 10. Alright, another rough week for the Tigers. They were swept in New York by the Mets 3-0 and outscored in that series 22-8. And then they came home and lost 2 out of 3 to the Toronto Blue Jays, where they only allowed 8 runs, but as a team they scored 5 through the entire 3-game series. So that's back-to-back 1-5 weeks for the Detroit Tigers. This week, 13 runs scored and 30 runs allowed. Next up, they have 4 at home with the first place Guardians Monday through Thursday, and then it's off to Camden Yards for 3 with the Baltimore Orioles Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Meanwhile, the Royals went 0-3 in Chicago against the White Sox and 1-2 in St. Louis against the Cardinals in the I-70 series. So that's a 1-5 record for the Royals, where they were outscored 27-20. The Royals return home to Kauffman Stadium for 3 with the Red Sox Monday through Wednesday, and 3 with the Seattle Mariners Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Jumping on over to the American League West. The Athletics are still on top with a record of 23-23. 10-12 at home, 13-11 on the road. 200 runs scored and 213 runs allowed. That's a run differential of -13. They've lost 2 straight games and they are 5-5 over their last 10. Alright, the A's went 1-2 with the St. Louis Cardinals and 1-2 against the San Francisco Giants, all 6 games being played in West Sacramento. The A's finished 2-4 for the week with 24 runs scored and 31 runs allowed. This week, they'll open a 4-game series in Anaheim against the LA Angels Monday through Thursday. And then they continue that trip with 3 in San Diego against the Padres Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. In second place, you have the Texas Rangers with a record of 22-24, just 1 game behind the A's. 11-10 at home, 11-14 on the road. 171 runs scored, 168 runs allowed. That's a run differential of +3. They won their last game, and they are 5-5 in their last 10. Alright, the Rangers began the week taking 2 of 3 at home from the Arizona Diamondbacks before losing 2 of 3 over the weekend in Houston against the in-state rival Astros. That's a 3-3 week for the Rangers. They scored 22 runs and only allowed 16. This week, they're headed west, playing 3 with the Colorado Rockies in Denver Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and 3 against the division rival Angels down in Anaheim Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The Seattle Mariners coming in third place with a record of 22-26. They are 2 games behind the A's. 12-14 at home, 10-12 on the road. 198 runs scored and 192 runs allowed. That's a run differential of +6. They've lost 3 straight games, and they are 4-6 over their last 10. The week started out great for the Mariners, taking 3 of 4 against the Houston Astros at Daikin Field. And then returning home to get swept in 3 by the San Diego Padres. So that's a 3-4 record for the Mariners last week. 31 runs scored, 27 runs allowed. They're playing the AL Central this week. 3 at home with the Chicago White Sox Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Followed by 3 games in Kansas City against the Royals Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. In fourth place are the Houston Astros with a record of 19-29. 5 games behind the A's. 12-14 at home, 7-15 on the road. 212 runs scored and 263 runs allowed. That's a run differential of -51. The Astros did lose their last game, and they are 4-6 over their previous 10. Alright, the week began poorly for the Astros. They went 1-3 against the Seattle Mariners, but finished up going 2-1 against the Texas Rangers for a record of 3-4 for the week. 16 runs scored and 33 runs allowed. This week they're hitting the road. They have 3 in Minnesota against the Twins Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and 3 at Wrigley Field against the Cubs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And sitting last place are the Los Angeles Angels at 16-31, and presently that is baseball's worst record. They are 7.5 games back of the A's in first place, I should say. 8-13 at home, 8-18 on the road. 186 runs scored, 246 runs allowed. That gives them a run differential of -60, which is the worst in all of baseball. They've lost 6 straight games, and they are 2-8 over their last 10. Alright, the Angels got swept in both of their series, going 0-3 at Cleveland to start the week, and 0-3 in the Freeway Series versus the LA Dodgers, and that series was in Anaheim. So they finished 0-6, and they were outscored 45-9. They were outscored 14-6 against the Guardians, and 31-3 against the Dodgers. That's bad. This week, the Angels will host the A's for 4 games, Monday through Thursday. And then the Texas Rangers are in town for 3 games, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On to the National League. We'll start in the East. And the Atlanta Braves continue to have the best record in all of Major League Baseball. 32-15 through May 17th. 16-8 at home, 16-7 on the road, 250 runs scored, and 152 runs allowed for a major league leading run differential of plus 98. They won their last game, and they are 6-4 over their last 10. All right, the Braves won that massive series against the Cubs to begin the week, winning 2 out of 3. And then the Boston Red Sox came down to Atlanta, and the Braves won that series as well, 2 out of 3. So that's a 4-2 record for the Braves, 22 runs scored, 11 runs allowed. They have a 4-game set in Miami against the Marlins to open up this week. That's Monday through Thursday. And then they host the Washington Nationals for 3 games, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. In second place and turning things around quite nicely are the Philadelphia Phillies at 24-23. 8 games behind the Braves. 12-12 at home, 12-11 on the road. 199 runs scored, 216 runs allowed, gives them a run differential of minus 17. They've won 4 straight games, and they are 7-3 over their last 10. And the good times continue to roll in South Philly. They went 2-1 at Fenway Park against the Boston Red Sox. That was a low-scoring set, 6-5. And then they swept their in-state rivals, the Pirates, out in Pittsburgh, outscoring them 23-9. So that's a 5-1 record for the Phillies, with 29 runs scored and 14 runs allowed. This week, they're home playing both Ohio teams. They'll start the week with 3 against the Cincinnati Reds, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And they'll finish the week playing 3 with the Cleveland Guardians, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. In third place, you have the Washington Nationals at 23-24, presently 9 games behind Atlanta. 8-14 at home, 15-10 on the road, 255 runs scored, 268 runs allowed. That's a run differential of minus 13. They lost their last game, and they are 6-4 over their previous 10. And Washington won both of their series last week, taking 2 out of 3 in Cincinnati, and then coming home for the Beltway series and taking 2 out of 3 from the Baltimore Orioles. So that's a 4-2 record for the Nationals. 38 runs scored, 38 runs allowed. The Nationals will open a 4-game series at home against the New York Mets Monday through Thursday, before traveling down to Atlanta for 3 with the Braves, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The Miami Marlins have dropped to 4th place. They are 21-26, 11 games behind the Braves. 14-12 at home, only 7-14 on the road. 201 runs scored, 214 runs allowed. That's a run differential of minus 13. They lost their last game, and they are 5-5 over their last 10. This past week, the Marlins went 1-2 at Minnesota and 1-2 at Tampa Bay for a 2-4 week. 25 runs scored, 35 runs allowed. The Marlins will host the Atlanta Braves in a 4-game series beginning Monday and going through Thursday. And then after that, they have 3 with the New York Mets Friday to Sunday. Speaking of the Mets, they are still last place in the East at 20-26. 11.5 games behind Atlanta. 11-13 at home, 9-13 on the road. 176 runs scored and 192 runs allowed gives them a run differential of -16. They've won 2 straight games and they are 6-4 over their last 10. This past week, the Mets swept the Detroit Tigers at Citi Field 3-0, outscoring Detroit 22-8. And then they won the first leg of the Subway Series against the New York Yankees, also at Citi Field, 2-1, as they finished the week 5-1, with 37 runs scored and 22 runs allowed. Alright, the Mets are off to our nation's capital for 4 games with the Washington Nationals, running Monday through Thursday. And then they play 3 in Miami, Friday through Sunday with the Marlins. So that's 7 straight games against divisional opponents. Alright, moving on to the National League Central, led by the Chicago Cubs with a record of 29-18. 14-5 at home, or rather 18-5 at home, 11-13 on the road. 241 runs scored, 199 runs allowed. Run differential is +42. They've lost 2 straight games and sit 4-6 in their last 10. This was kind of a tough week for the Cubs. Losing 2 of 3 in Atlanta, no shame in that. But then losing 2 of 3 against their in-town rivals, the Chicago White Sox, at Wright Field. So the Cubs finished the week 2-4. 26 runs scored, 31 runs allowed. Vaughn's in the house. What's poppin', my man? Alright, this week the Brewers are in town for 3, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, followed by the Houston Astros for 3 more, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Alright, the Milwaukee Brewers have taken second place in this division at 26-18. They are 1.5 games behind the Cubs, with that series coming up starting tonight. 15-9 at home, 11-9 on the road, 218 runs scored, 157 runs allowed. That's a run differential of +61. That's really good. They lost their last game and they are 8-2 over their last 10. Alright, the Brewers went 2-1 at home against San Diego and 2-1 at Minnesota this past week for a record of 4-2. 23 runs scored, 16 runs allowed. This week they have a big 3-game series at Wrigley against the Cubs, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then another big series over the weekend. 3 with the 2-time reigning World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. In a virtual tie for second place with the Brewers are the St. Louis Cardinals at 27-19, also 1.5 games behind the Cubs. 12-11 at home, real good road record at 15-8. 208 runs scored, 205 runs allowed. That's a run differential of +3. They lost their last game and they are 6-4 in their last 10. The Cardinals had a nice week, winning both of their series, taking 2 of 3 from the A's in Sacramento, and then coming home for the I-70 series and taking 2 of 3 from the Kansas City Royals. So they finished the week 4-2. 22 runs scored and 22 runs allowed. Alright, they're staying within the NL Central for their next 2 series. First, a 3-game home set with the Pittsburgh Pirates, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then 3 in Cincinnati with the Reds, Friday and Saturday. The Pirates and Reds are tied for last place in the Central, both at 24-23. Both teams sitting 5 games behind the Chicago Cubs for first. Pittsburgh is 13-13 at home, 11-10 on the road. 229 runs scored, 211 runs allowed. That's a run differential of plus 18. They've lost 3 straight, and they are 4-6 in their last 10 games. On the other hand, Cincinnati is 13-11 at home and 11-12 on the road. 204 runs scored, 239 runs allowed. That's a run differential of minus 35. They've lost 2 straight games, and they are 4-6 in their last 10. Okay, the Pirates played at PNC Park in their 6 games last week. They went 2-1 versus Colorado, and then got swept by the in-state rival Philadelphia Phillies 3-0. Giving the Pirates a 2-4 record for the week, 23 runs scored and 36 runs allowed. Pittsburgh was outscored by Philadelphia 23-9 in the weekend series. Next up for the Pirates, they have 3 in St. Louis against the Cardinals Tuesday through Thursday, followed by 3 north of the border with the Toronto Blue Jays Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Meanwhile, the Reds lost both of their series. They went 1-2 at home against Washington, and then 1-2 at Cleveland for a record of 2-4. 30 runs scored and 41 runs allowed. Oh, I didn't mention the run scoring for the Pirates. Pittsburgh scored 23 runs and allowed 36. Back to the Reds. They have 3 at Citizens Bank Park with the Philadelphia Phillies Monday through Wednesday, before coming home to host the Cardinals for 3 games, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That brings us now to the National League West. And at the top, once again, are the Los Angeles Dodgers. The 2-time reigning world champions are 29-18 through May 17th. 15-10 at home, 14-8 on the road. 248 runs scored, 154 runs allowed. That gives them a plus 94 run differential, second in baseball behind the Braves. They've won 5 straight games, and they are 6-4 over their last 10. Alright. The Dodgers split that huge 4-game series with the San Francisco Giants last week, winning 2 and losing 2. And then they went down the 5 freeway to Anaheim and swept the Angels in that 3-game set, where they outscored the Angels 31-3. So that's a 5-2 week for the Dodgers. 45 runs scored, 20 runs allowed. And they got a big series for first place in the division. They have 3 with the Padres down at Petco Park in San Diego, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Followed by 3 in Milwaukee with the Brewers Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we'll see how the Dodgers look this week against the Padres and the Brew Crew. The San Diego Padres slipped back to second place. They are 28-18, just a half game behind the Dodgers. 13-10 at home, 15-8 on the road, 195 runs scored, 188 runs allowed. That's a run differential of plus 7. They've won 3 straight games, and they are 6-4 in their last 10. Alright, the Padres had their turn with the Brewers last week in Milwaukee, losing 2 out of 3 in that series. And then the Vetter Cup. They would sweep Seattle at T-Mobile Park all 3 games for a 4-2 record. 25 runs scored and 21 runs allowed. Those not familiar with Eddie Vedder, he's the lead singer of the Seattle grunge band Pearl Jam. He grew up in San Diego and then moved to Seattle to hit it big in the rock world. So that's why the Padres Mariners series is known as the Vetter Cup. Alright, this week, big set for the Pods. 3 at home with the Dodgers Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, perhaps for first place in the NL West. That's followed by an interleague series at home with the Athletics. 3 games Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The Arizona Diamondbacks hanging on to third place. They are 22-23, 6 games behind LA. 12-9 at home, 10-14 on the road. 198 runs scored, 215 runs allowed. That's a run differential of -17. They won their last game and they are 5-5 over their last 10. Alright. The Diamondbacks were road tripping last week, going 1-2 in Arlington against the Rangers, and then 2-1 in Denver against the Colorado Rockies for a 3-3 week. 29 runs scored and 24 runs allowed. And this week, the Diamondbacks will be at home against divisional opponents, beginning with 3 against the San Francisco Giants, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then they'll play the Rockies again, this time at Chase Field for 4 games, Thursday through Sunday. The San Francisco Giants are in 4th place at 20-27. This will put them 9 games behind LA. 10-12 at home, 10-15 on the road. 165 runs scored, 202 runs allowed. That gives them a run differential of -37. Hey, what's poppin', Carl? How you doing, man? The Giants have won 2 straight, and they are 6-4 in their last 10 games. Alright, so they split that big 4-game series with the Dodgers in LA last week, 2 up, 2 down. And then they went over to Sacramento and took 2 out of 3 from the A's. Finishing the week 4-3. 35 runs scored, 24 runs allowed. Alright, this week they play 3 here in Phoenix against the Arizona Diamondbacks Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Followed by 3 back at home at Oracle Park against the Chicago White Sox Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the White Sox are playing some really good baseball right now. And rounding out the National League West are the Colorado Rockies with a record of 18-29. They are 11 games behind the Dodgers as we sit here on May 18th. 9-13 at home, 9-16 on the road, 199 runs scored, 243 runs allowed. Run differential is -44. They lost their last game, and they are 4-6 in their last 10. Yeah, I agree, Vaughn. The Giants really got to figure it out, because this was a team that many people thought were gonna perform well this year, and it just hasn't worked out just yet. All right, the Rockies finished their Pennsylvania road trip last week, going 1-2 in Pittsburgh, and then coming home and losing another series to the Arizona Diamondbacks, also 2-1. They finished the week at 2-4 with 24 runs scored and 33 runs allowed. This week, they'll host the Texas Rangers for 3 games, and then they come here for 4 big ones with the Arizona Diamondbacks Thursday through Sunday. Alright, so looking at the playoffs. As it sits in the American League, Tampa Bay would have the number 1 seed. They would have home field in the playoffs. Cleveland, as your Central Division leaders, would be the 2 seed. And the Athletics, leading the West, would be your number 3 seed. Now, over in the American League wildcard race, presently it would be the Yankees, White Sox, and Rangers who would make up the 3 wildcard spots. Both Seattle and Toronto are one game out. The Mariners are 22 and 26. The Blue Jays are 21 and 25. Then you have Baltimore and Minnesota, both 1.5 games out, both with matching 21 and 26 records. Detroit and Kansas City are 2.5 games out, both at 20 and 27. Followed by Boston at 19 and 27. They would be 3 games out of that third wild card. Houston at 19 and 29 is 4 games out. And the Los Angeles Angels at 16 and 31 sit 6.5 games out of that third and final wild card spot. On the National League side of things, Atlanta would have the top record in the NL at 32 and 13, so they would be the number 1 seed. And then there's a tie between the Cubs and the Dodgers, both at 29 and 18. I'm probably thinking the Dodgers would be the top wild card. We're going to take a look real quick. Or not the top wild card, but they would probably have the number 2 seed in the National League as both teams played each other. Alright, so let's look at... Nope. Go to standings. National League. LA Dodgers. Because I know the Cubs and the Dodgers played in April, and LA won that series 2-1. So based on that head-to-head tiebreaker, I would give the Dodgers the number 2 seed, and the Cubs would fall back to number 3. So to recap, that would be the Braves as the 1 seed, the Dodgers as the 2, and the Cubs as the 3. As of right now, the Padres, Brewers, and Cardinals would have the 3 wildcard spots. Hi, Lucy. Alright, so the Padres at 28 and 18 would have the top wildcard spot. The Brewers at 26 and 18 would be the number 2 wild card. And the St. Louis Cardinals at 27 and 19 would have the third and final wild card spot. And it's much more distant with the NL wild card picture than the AL wild card picture, as we see Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Cincinnati all 24 and 23, sitting 3.5 games behind the Cardinals for that last playoff spot. Washington at 23 and 24 and Arizona at 22 and 23 are both 4.5 games out. Miami is 6.5 games out at 21 and 26. The New York Mets are 7 out at 20 and 26. Then it's the San Francisco Giants at 20 and 27. They are 7.5 games out. And bringing up the rear would be the Colorado Rockies at 18 and 29 and 9.5 games out. So there it is, folks. The updated Major League Baseball standings through May 17th. And we will do this all over again next week. For my television fans, episode number 35 of TV Station History is coming out tomorrow. We'll look at the history of WGN TV, and boy, they have a really big history. Hey, thanks for joining Model Lorianne and Vaughn and Stardust and Lucy and Carl. That's Highway SD TV. And Umi. A big shout out to all of y'all for joining me. Alright, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you tomorrow for episode 35 of TV Station History. Peace out.